to the Creative Moments Season 2, Episode 8. That didn't work. The Christmas special, coming to you a little earlier than Christmas. I'm Dante Bullhauer. I'm a photographer.
Jamie Bullhauer. I'm a writer.
Podcast where we talk all things creativity, and let's get right into it. So today, not going to be a super...
Smooth. We're not on a smooth start. I almost cut my thumb on that one.
Oh, well, it's all right. It's Christmas.
Okay.
But today we're not necessarily doing any philosophical, creative things, but we're just kind of talking about, we're going to go through our 3 favorite pieces of work to date so far. It could be just from whenever, and then just kind of explaining maybe how it came about, the story behind it, or why we like it so much. Just a little Cliff's Notes on that piece of work. So would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
You go first. This one was 100% your idea.
Okay. So my first one, I'm gonna do. So I do 3 basic things in this media realm. I do graphic design, videography, and photography. So I'm gonna do one of each, starting with graphic design. So this is probably one of my favorite pieces that I've created, not necessarily because it is the best looking or in my opinion the best made graphic that I've ever created, but I created that graphic during COVID, and I used your computer and spent all day downstairs making that graphic because I saw her original commitment graphic that UNK posted, and they just use like a template thing. I know what site it's from. You can do the exact same thing for any school, whatever. Yeah,
you do.
And yes, and I was like, I can do a little bit better than that. So I spent hours that day just creating that graphic, and ended up sending it out. And then during the school year, so I made that in the summer of 2020, so COVID, all that stuff. Then during the school year, I entered it in to Scholastic Art for a photo illustration, and it ended up winning first in the state, second in the nation for photo illustrations. And so that was my first, I guess, national award that I had won, and I actually won 2 that year, but whatever. But that was just a really cool thing, because the spark of it was just me saying, I know I can do better than that, and then I just ended up creating it just to create it, and it ended up giving me this awesome experience to be able to win a national award in high school. So that was really cool. It's like I said, it's not maybe my favorite graphic in terms of composition or graphical elements, but it's my favorite in terms of, I guess, what it did for me. And that girl, I printed it for her graduation, super huge. So it was just all around. It created a cool experiences for me, other than just other graphics. You just make them, print them, send them out, that type of thing. So that's my favorite graphic to date.
Oh, so you're all gonna go kind of against. Okay, so. My number 3, technically, since we're supposed to do, is an interesting, and I actually talked about this in an episode on the Quintessential Learning podcast with Dr. Ingram. But it's a poem that I wrote my senior year in college. One of the jobs I had was working at 7-Eleven. We had a 7-Eleven in town. And it's called Big Gulps and Air Jordans. And I'm not really going to read it because it's one of those that is visual. There's 3...
We'll link all...
this one actually is only available in the book, and I Never Told You.
Well, we'll link the book.
So it's it's an added poem into that. Anyway, my senior year in college was tough in regards. I was running track. I was holding down a couple of jobs. I was just, trying to get to graduation. So I worked the overnight shift at 7-Eleven during the weekend. So you can just imagine. It was downtown. So I wrote this poem on the back of a cigarette carton. because we had to stock the thing. So I just ripped it. And there's three aspects to it. There's the social aspect of me and money and stuff, and I'm wearing Air Jordans while I'm working a midnight shift. It's got this really interesting component that uses the sign of that I have to ID for alcohol because that's my job. And then it has this descriptive part of the moment that I'm in. And in one way, it's probably the first honest poem that was both spurred in the moment, but also had a very unique form to it. And I didn't really realize that because I still hadn't, and because I'm going to talk about forms a little bit later. But it just was such a powerful piece that eclipsed everything that I was feeling and my commentary, but yet also just on this page visually. Well, at that time it was on the back of a cigarette carton box, but it was just like, this is cool. Like, and it kind of kept me, because then the next year when I went to grad school out of state, I started this midnight poetry club. We met under the security lights at the science building, and we'd read poetry and stuff. I don't know. I had my senior year in college. I was getting ready. At that time, I didn't know I'd be going to grad school yet. But writing had kind of faded away, and I really actually regret that. Because in high school I won a national award also for writing, No, I know, but I let it go. The last couple of years of college. But that poem and that moment and writing that just got, because then I would self-publish my book of poems my second year of grad school, and I kind of, even though it faded again a little bit when I became a dad and everything for a while, but I think that poem alone kept the spark alive, and would keep it going even though the fire went down a little while, comes back, things like that. So,
do you still have the carton?
Yes, I do. I actually still have the carton. Yep, I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so my video, I guess.
Your number ones. You get three number ones. That's not what we talked about.
Well, I diversified. Kind of not exactly the video that I would expect that, I guess people that follow a lot of my work would expect to be my favorite video or whatever. But so it's this hype video, and we'll kind of play it. I'll show the first minute of it to you. But the reason it is my favorite video is because of the work that I put into it. So I'll talk more about that in a second.
Everyone knows what it takes to win. Hard work, determination, talent, I could go on and on. But what does it take to be champion? To win it all, be undisputed, number one champ. What special thing separates winners from champions? It's failure. Coming so close to your goal, but not reaching it. It builds a hunger and motivation that can't be crafted through anything else. And no, failing isn't fun. But when that failure turns to fuel, there's no putting that fire out.
So then it kind of fades into just some action shots and everything. But
Some creative writing there.
yeah, so there's a couple reasons why it's like my favorite video. One was the amount of work that I put into it. I did the voiceover. That was the first video that I really dived deep into sound design and like the wind and the like when her jersey's there, you hear a little like flag waving. All that stuff. It was the first time I really dove into that. I'm known somewhat in the sports world for hype videos, and that is a hype video, but it's so far out of the box of a generic hype video, I guess. Like, it's very personal to the team and the community, and you can relate to it. And it just really it took a lot of work. It took a lot of time to storyboard it out and then execute it and then edit. And it was received really, really well on social media. And that was really fulfilling because it was an unpaid gig. Like, I just did it to do it. I feel like it showcased...
And I think that lets you, gives you the freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, because
we talked about that. Yep.
Yeah. But just the way it was received and everything, and it's showcases, I feel like, the kind of difference in, like, it's very much me and my creativity and my, like, that is the vision that I have in my head just put onto a screen. And I think it very much envelops my creativity and shows that, like, a generic hype video can be this, and this, and it's not super hard to execute on, but not everybody can put together a story like that. And part of it was because I've followed that team for years, so I kind of knew them. But I'm really proud of that video because I feel like it very much showcases my creativity and me and my visions that I have. So I was just very happy with the execution of it, and so that's why it's my favorite video.
Yeah, and then we had talked even just last episode that when you, like, because you said it's unpaid, it's your vision, so you get to do. There's still the risk.
Yep.
There's still the risk of how will it be received, but yeah, you know that it will. Like, yeah, you can.
People aren't upset that they think they didn't get their money's worth or whatever. I just did it, so you can like it or not like it, but.
All right, so number 2 technically ended up as I thought about this for a couple of days, probably would be the book Under the Lights. Again, it was really interesting. Now, that one was spurred because of a really tough situation also. It was the first time I actually completed the November Write a Novel month. I did not do very well this year. In fact, my word count this year was 0. And it happens. It's hard. But I completed it. Like, I was like talking into my phone to get word count down and all that. And it's about high school football, stuff like that, which much of my career I've gotten to coach football and be a head coach a couple times and stuff, and it just was, writing a novel is a lot of hard work, takes a lot of time and stuff, but it also, at that moment in my career and direction and just lots of uncertainty and some stuff, it was also kind of like not exactly a legacy, but it was something that was completed, and I taught myself how to do this on Amazon and all that to get it published, and it's still a little rough on the Kindle side, but now the technology is even better on that aspect. At that time, it was still kind of rough anyway, getting it all online on Amazon. Lots of people liked it, and it's still there. And I think part of the creative life and part of the reason that we create to a degree just at the beginning, because we already talked about the consumer and stuff, though, is because it is a reflection of us, and it's a way that we get to stay alive. If you remember way back reading Shakespeare, Sonnet 70, I believe. No, it might be 63. about how he wants his verse to be read, once he's gone. And that aspect that we know that some part of us is here, that book is there, who knows, maybe a grandchild will read it someday, like that's really cool to actually think about. And so that is my second, getting that book done. I've got some other novels in my head and on paper, and I really need to push through, through getting those, but I did it, and so that's my number 2.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. My number 3. My favorite photo, I guess.
Yeah,
because I cheated. Yeah, that's my bad. But
no.
Onward.
It's our podcast.
Yeah, I can do whatever I want. So this photo right here is my favorite photo. I think I might have shown it up on the podcast before, but I took this.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe not, but I took this on just a solo trip, and it was supposed to be a weekend trip, ended up just being a day trip to Colorado and back. Story for another time. But I went up there specifically. That was last October, so just over a year ago. And I went up to Colorado there in July of that same year, so a couple months before, just kind of on like a class trip type thing. But obviously, I took a lot of photos there, things like that. But then I wanted to go back in October because during that time it was still COVID stuff. Even though it was a year later, there's still like restrictions, and you had to sign up for like times to get into certain parts of the park, and that was one of the most popular parts of the park. So
and you went early in the morning, right?
Yeah, I left at 4-ish.
Yeah.
And so that night before I went up, I waited there until it hit 6 p.m. and it opened up and I got it. And then by the time I was done checking out, they were all sold out. So I was like, thank goodness that I was on there right away.
Yeah.
So I went up, and that is called Bear Lake, where I was at for that one. I went Bear Lake, Dream Lake, Emerald Lake, that kind of trail, if you ever were around that area. But that was the first trip that I have ever taken specifically just to take photos. And why it's one of my favorite photos is I really like the color and the drama of it and the emotion of it. But being there and the adrenaline and fulfillment that I felt on that hike. I hiked so fast I got really bad altitude sickness at the end because I was just so excited. But that, just feeling that passion to drive me to drive 12 hours in a day just to spend 4 hours taking photos was such a cool experience to know that, like, this is what I love. This is what I love doing, and I will go to these lengths just to get this photo and just to take photos, take videos, just to experience doing what I love in super cool places. And so that is why that's my favorite photo, because when I look at it, I remember parking my car and pulling up to the trail, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is my favorite thing ever. And I literally just did that specifically just because I love taking photos. And so that's why that's my favorite photo.
Yeah. And again, here in that case, as having a footprint left, someday you can show your kids, or your nephews or nieces, like. And I think that's a side maybe that's another podcast. The importance of legacy, what we do with our creative stuff, and why it matters for later. Anyway, but I was just surprised because there's a few other pictures I thought were. But it's your and there again we already talked about. There's a bridge there for that. So, all right. Well, my number one is not a certain piece. It was my personal challenge to write in 100 different forms. That one, completing it, And I didn't give myself a timeline, just because I really didn't want to force it too much. And I did use a little bit of some prompts and stuff from the April Write a Poem a Day, but had to obviously carry on. And it took, like I said, I think it took me 8 months to complete that. And what it did, and again, in that sense, it's just something I wanted to do. In high school, not that my English teachers were bad or anything, but poetry is just not covered in high school like it really could be. Now, there are cool poetry clubs and there's other stuff. And then in college, it might be a little bit more different now, but back then, again, it was very classic study. And it was more of reading and understanding, not the creative part. So just in that, I was just like, okay, because there are so many different forms, and there's modern ones designed, just within the last couple of years. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to try this, instead of always doing free verse to a degree or designing. Sometimes you can design your own form. And going through that process, and then now as I'm getting involved with like Move Me Poetry on Twitter or connecting in spaces and stuff, I'm kind of the like, okay, what's this form? Or they'll ask me for my expertise on these things, or to talk about them, or to challenge. Like on Tuesday, I will be doing on Move Me Poetry. On Tuesdays is Teach Me Tuesday, so I'm doing another episode for them and introducing a form, and seeing what people they post on there. It's a really cool community building thing. But I would not be in that position if I didn't go and challenge myself and learn and work through and do the hard work to a degree of learning that and trying to come up with topics for 100.
Yeah.
That's why it took me a little while, but and now I'm starting, and so this is on the deep philosophical, we're going to go there, because it's me, Now when I get an idea, so I get an idea, and I get it down on paper in some form or way in a rough draft. But now it starts to the way that I say it or I write it or stuff, it kind of dances to a form. And I'll start to oh, okay, this seems like this is a good, I write a line, I'm like, ooh, that's a good refrain. That can be repeated. And so then I'm like, okay, which refrains, what, because there's a ton of poetic forms that use refrains in lots of different ways. And so it's still learning. I still have to take another level deeper with my work to see if the form works with it. And how to really spend time. And then by doing so, I strengthen my skill set, but I also believe I strengthen the connection to the part of me that wants and does express that way. I was thinking, we didn't talk about it in our last episode, but as you were talking about how you kind of naturally see some stuff, I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's what happens. You get more in tune with your skill set, so it's almost instantaneously available to you to create good work. And yes, we can still work on things. You still change, work with the settings and stuff. But instead of really rough stuff at the beginning, we're now with really good stuff, and then we work to make it great.
Yep. Yeah. I think, at least for me, learning had kind of a negative connotation until you get to that point, whatever it is that you're learning something that you love, and you yeah, it's still hard work to learn and to fail and to do it again, but if you are passionate about it, you will just have an inkling to learn anyway. And so I feel like a lot of people don't oh, I don't want to learn a new thing. If you love it, the learning, it doesn't feel like work or like learning. Like it's fun, and the work of that and doing 100 different forms is fun, even though it's not always easy.
Yeah, because learning isn't easy. Learning
No.
should challenge you on that edge, and sometimes when it's way over the edge, that's where we get really frustrated about stuff.
Yep.
It's got to kind of always be just on the edge of your skill set, because then it becomes motivational too. Because it's like, ooh, I could see that, I could, but I got to get there.
Yeah.
And if you are really passionate, or what you're passionate about, in our case, it's graphic art, photography, writing. For other people, it's paint, for metal work. They do. You see that when you are connected with that aspect, and those people, if you talk to them, they'll talk about new techniques in their field or stuff like that.
Yep.
It's kind of a, I guess, universal rule. I don't know.
Something.
But you see it in athletes and song composers, and you can just tell.
Yeah. So those we'll link a bunch of stuff in the description. You can check out the poems, the books, those types of things. Hope you guys have a happy holidays. It's gonna be pretty close to Christmas when
Christmas.
we release this. So yeah, enjoy the time with your family. Go out and be creative during break. Do something cool. Get some word counts down. Take some photos. Do some cool stuff. But we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Or before then. It'll be before then.
It'll be before
We'll
then.
be back close to New Year's. So we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.